Rewatch Podcast presents the Alien vs. Predator Rewatch. Join us each week as we discuss another film in the Alien, Prometheus, Predator, and Alien vs. Predator franchise. Send your feedback to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or follow us on Twitter @rewatchpod. Today we're discussing AVP, Alien vs. Predator, starring Sanaa Lathan, Raoul Bova, Lance Henriksen, Ewan Bremner, Colin Salmon, and Tommy Flanagan, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. Welcome back to the Rewatch Podcast. I'm Corey, and there's no room for sick men on this expedition.
And I'm Nathan, and you want a piece of me, you ugly son of a bitch. Hey man, in the intro you paused at Lance Henriksen, but you can't blame him when they drove the truckload of money up to his house, can you?
Exactly.
And keep in mind, Lance Henriksen was right in the middle of Millennium when this movie hit, so he probably needed a big screen hit, didn't he?
No doubt. I'm sure we'll get into it.
Anyway, we're finally here for the big clash, the WWF clash, Alien versus Predator.
Yes.
So how about we just roll the trailer?
Let's do it.
"7 days ago, one of my satellites over Antarctica discovered a pyramid.
Where exactly on the ice is this?
It's not on the ice. It's 2,000 feet under it. Let's make history.
Oh my God.
Whoever built this pyramid believed in ritual sacrifice.
Did you hear that?
What was that thing?
What's going on?
Let's go!
What did you say this room was called?
Sacrificial chamber.
This story's all here. This whole thing was a trap.
They're not hunting us. We're in the middle of a war.
They're using us as bait.
You ugly son of a...
All right, welcome back. How about we get straight into some trivia?
All right. AVP, long awaited, been talked about since Predator 2. It took 14 years to actually do something.
Even though this film is only set 7 years after Predator 2.
This did get released August 13 in 2004 on 3,395 screens, and the film grossed $38.2 million over its opening weekend, and it outgrossed every single Alien and Predator film that preceded it. Can you believe it?
This was a pretty big film. Like, we're kind of jesting a little bit in our intro, but I suppose it's kind of easy to jest in the context of having, like, you know, Alien versus Predator, then Alien versus Predator Requiem, and then obviously Prometheus as well. It's easier to jest when we actually think about, like, those 4 films in a row. But in 2004, people were looking forward to this film. I mean, you got to think that it had been several years, I think 96 or 97, was it 97 that Alien 4 came out? I think it was 97, wasn't it?
Yeah, 97.
Yeah. So there's been 7 years since we've seen an Alien on screen. And as you say, it's been 14 years since we've seen a Predator on screen. And people were kind of looking forward to this. And you also kind of got to remember too that there was an awful lot of like product placement, and like it was like a big kind of brand by this stage, wasn't it? I mean, the Alien vs Predator was kind of crossed over in the comics, and there was a whole bunch of kind of other things as well.
Well, the big one that they throw in your face in this movie, Pepsi.
Yes.
For some reason, Pepsi wants to sell you its product through Alien and Predator, and they weasel it into this movie in great fashion.
And also, don't forget too, this was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who was, I mean, he's had a bit of an interesting career. He certainly made a lot of big kind of blockbusters, but you could argue there's some kind of varying kind of quality on there as well. He's obviously most famous for his Resident Evil series. He did do 3 of them, but I think he's actually come back for the final chapter, Resident Evil, the final chapter. He did Resident Evil 1, and then Resident Evil Afterlife and Retribution. So he keeps coming back for those films. He started off in 95 with Mortal Kombat, although he did make something called Shopping in 94, which I don't know too much about. He did make Event Horizon, and it's probably my first introduction to Paul Anderson. I'd be willing to say it's probably yours as well. Is that a fair call?
I'd venture to say maybe Mortal Kombat, but Event Horizon... Yeah, I saw that movie. It was, yeah, it is what it is.
If I remember rightly, I think it's like all these films, it starts off quite well. It's this, you know, space kind of thing with Sam Neill and I think Lawrence Fishburne in it, and then I think it doesn't really know how to end. I have not watched that film. Well, maybe once since it came out, but it's been a long. I mean, it was 95. He also did another film called Soldier, Resident Evil, Alien vs Predator, Death Race, which I mean that's a remake of the old Sylvester Stallone film, isn't it?
It is. It's a bit grittier than Death Race 2000 was, which had a bit of, you know, fun and frivolity to it. Death Race, the remake, was definitely a lot harder and a lot more interesting.
The character played by Lance Henriksen, actually Charles Bishop Wayland, and he is the co-founder of the Weyland-Yutani Corporation. This is actually the company referred to in the earlier Alien movies. He's the ancestor of the Bishop android from Aliens and Alien 3, who were also played by Henriksen. In his office on the ship, he actually does the same hand trick as the android in Aliens with the knife, yeah?
Yeah, an interesting little touch.
I actually didn't mind that so much. I mean, feels a little kind of square peg in a round hole kind of thing, but I suppose they have to try and tie them in somehow, don't they? Although maybe it felt slightly unnecessary.
Well, obviously it's to try and tie this film back to the originals some way, and they're doing that by shoehorning Lance Henriksen into this, so they had to do it some way. There was talks that Schwarzenegger was going to come back, reprise his role of Dutch to tie it to Predator, but he said he would be more than happy to do it if he didn't win the election for California governor, which of course he went on to do, hence did not appear in this film. I'm
fairly certain Arnold would almost do anything if you persuaded him enough, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've actually got an admission to make. When he did the Governor California thing and he stopped doing that and he came back and started making movies, it actually took me a long time to see one of his films. I think the first film I saw was the Terminator film, like last year. I didn't see any of his like post-political career kind of films, and I don't know why. I just kind of veered away from them. I think I never really heard the best things about them, so I just kind of stayed away a little bit.
Yeah, I've seen a few films he's done post-governorship. You know, more or less, they kind of give or take, really. He did do a good one with Stallone called The Breakout or something like that, which was relatively okay, about two guys escaping from this massively crazy, no way you can escape prison, which was like under the ocean or something. It was not half bad.
Did you ever see that zombie film that he did, that Maggie or whatever it was called? Did you ever check that out?
No, I didn't catch that one, no.
Apparently that's quite good. It's kind of on my list, so it'd be good to kind of catch up with that one. But anyway, we're kind of moving off topic a little bit. But yeah, so apparently he was offered the chance to kind of come back, but obviously he became governor of California, didn't he?
That's why we at least have Lance Henriksen here, who is just, I think, they backed up the dump truck full of money, but at the same time, like, he's added an extra thing that he can sign at Comic-Cons and whatnot, right?
This is also interesting too, as Alien and Predator is actually a sequel to the Predator films and prequel to the Alien series. It kind of places the timeline in a fairly precarious kind of place. I suspect the screenwriters were trying to play it relatively safe as far as the knowledge of aliens and predators in the outside kind of world. So Anderson was cautious of contradicting continuity of the franchises. He actually chose to set the film on the remote Norwegian Antarctic island of Bouvet, commenting that it's definitely the most hostile environment on Earth and probably the closest to an alien surface you can actually get. Anderson thought that setting the film in an urban environment like New York City would actually break continuity with the Alien series. I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion once we kind of actually get into the film, but the setting itself, the Arctic kind of environment, I think is probably one of the better things about the film, truthfully. I think it does have a bit of a filmic kind of quality and quite remote. So I think that it was a very interesting decision that they went down with that one.
Yeah, interesting's a good word for it. It's just an interesting way to get around the continuity and make it still make sense in a way. I'm sure we'll return to this conversation when we get to the next film, Requiem, but for now, yeah, we're getting around it, so that's fine.
Now, Guillermo del Toro was actually also offered the director's chair, but actually opted to make Hellboy in 2004 instead. And I think that would have been a bit of an interesting kind of choice, truthfully. I would have loved to have seen a del Toro Alien versus Predator film. I think it would have been quite visionary, yeah? Don't you agree?
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro brings his own touch, but honestly, I have to say thank God, because Hellboy, I think it's a far superior film to this one.
Oh, no. Of course, yeah. I'm not arguing that the Hellboy is not a great film. All I'm saying is if he was given the opportunity, perhaps he would have elevated the material more so, if you know what I mean, and made maybe a film that could have been regarded in the same light as a Hellboy. Probably not, but it's not impossible either, yeah?
Yeah, definitely not. It would have definitely been, again, interesting.
So, no, as I was saying too about the Alien vs. Predator story actually crossed over virtually all forms of media before becoming a feature film. There was a successful comic book series, which I mentioned earlier on. There was a toy line, multiple video games, and soundtrack of the PC game, and even a trading card series. So when I say the word branding, this film has it all over it. In fact, I think I kind of mentioned the word branding kind of after we spoke about Aliens, that you could kind of feel like that it was kind of evolving beyond this like monster movie thing, which essentially the Ridley Scott 1979 classic was, which it hadn't, I mean, there was no pretense, there was no weight on its shoulders, where all of the sequels, even though Aliens is a wonderful film, there's definitely a bit of a weight there about like the aliens themselves and the predators themselves and kind of what we expect to see from them on screen. And there was a big fanboy community as well, so that they've all got expectations too. So again, we show up in 2004 and Alien vs. Predator hits the screen and every fanboy's at the cinema watching this film, yeah? That's why it did so well.
Yeah, well, on the topic of branding too, did you notice that Alien and Predator are never actually mentioned throughout the whole movie?
I did actually think about that a little bit, yeah.
They refer to the aliens as things, creatures, or serpents. The predators are referred to as hunters or humanoids. They even refer to them as teenagers at one point, but never alien or predator.
Now, something that I did enjoy about the film, and apparently the crew tried to keep CGI to an absolute minimum. As Anderson said, people in suits and puppets are scarier than CG monsters as they are there in the frame. Apparently, roughly 70% of the scenes in the film were created using suits, puppets, effects and miniatures. And keep in mind, this is 2004, so digital effects were certainly at their disposal. And if they wanted to make a CGI heavy, every 5 seconds there's another, fake thing on screen, then they could have done that. And I think the film benefits from it because do you remember how we were talking back in Alien 3, how you could clearly tell the CGI shots, especially towards the end of the Alien, and it just looks silly. And I don't think the aliens and the predators look as silly in this film. I think they look pretty good, truthfully.
Yeah, I agree. I really appreciated that. And I think Paul W.S. Anderson coming off Resident Evil films, a lot of that stuff was practical as well. So, yeah, he brought that kind of sensibility. But he also realizes that, in 2004, CGI was definitely on the increase. So he couldn't 100% do what they did in Alien back in the 70s, So he had to make a compromise. And it seems that compromise fell mostly on the side of doing it practically, 70%. I mean, so just 30% is not half bad. That's good odds.
You keep in mind, too, that they kept the budget to a relative minimum as well. I mean, this was made for $60 million. And I think it was shot in Europe somewhere. And I think I read somewhere, too, that Anderson actually pointed out that to build the sets, if he was going to do it in LA, it would have cost like $15 million or something like that. And if he built them in Europe, he could have done it for $2 million. So, they were obviously trying very hard to try and keep the budget down because I think it's fair to say too that all the sequels for Alien and the Predator films, they've all done well, but none of them have been like mega blockbusters, like, everyone's salivating for a sequel. Like, they've all done just well enough to make a sequel, but certainly not that well, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. And I did want to mention before we head out of the trivia that this film actually does take Lance Henriksen across the line, second place, of course, as the actor who has been killed by the trifecta of Alien, Predator, and Terminator. The first, of course, being Bill Paxton, who crossed that line back in 1990 when he appeared in Predator 2, but Henriksen officially gets across the line second because he is taken out by a predator in this film.
So Paxton was in Aliens and killed obviously by an alien, Predator 2, and you said that he was in the first Terminator film, is that right?
Yes, he was one of the three punks at the very beginning of the film when Schwarzenegger walks up and tells them that he needs their clothes, and they tell him to fuck off,
yeah.
And the Terminator kills them all.
And Henriksen was in...
He was in Terminator as well. He gets taken out in the police station attack.
Does he really?
He was the offsider to the police chief, and then of course he got killed off, well, technically killed off by an alien. In Aliens. That was the main reason for him dying. And then, of course, yeah, he gets killed by a predator in this film. So
interesting. All right. I think we've kind of exhausted the trivia on Alien vs. Predator, yeah?
Yeah, let's get into the film, hey?
Let's do it.
All right, so we kick it off with what we believe to be an alien queen is revealed to actually be a Weyland Corporation satellite.
Yeah, so a little bit of fun and games being had in the editing suite from Paul Anderson. Somebody came up with a great idea, didn't they? Let's make the opening shot look like an alien queen, but we're going to trick all the audience, and it's actually going to be a satellite.
Yes, and we pretty much get the beginnings of how we're going to unfold this plot, because this satellite, which is owned by, like I said, the Weyland Corporation, and they pick up this heat signature from 2,000 feet below the ice in Antarctica. And this heat signature is revealed to be an ancient pyramid, which was built many, many, many years, possibly by what is believed to be the first civilization.
They don't really know where it's kind of come from, and so obviously we kind of meet Charles Weyland, and it's like a race against time to get to this site to find its secrets and work out exactly what it is. So, I mean, the first 20 minutes of this film is literally, let's put a team together and have them all kind of say no, and then let's argue with them for a bit and then try and coerce them back into the squad kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of what makes this film work to an extent is that there is a lot of rushing involved.
Yes.
We've found this thing. It's an archaeological site, so if we get there first, we get to claim it as ours. Nobody else can come in, so we're in a big rush to do that. We're going to haphazardly throw together the best people we can with the money that we have to throw at them, and that's how it's going to be. And, you know, even though there is our main character of Lex, who is adept at taking people out on ice expeditions, and she is going to, you know, sort of wax fair on the whole thing and say, I'm not going to do it. This is ridiculous. We don't have time to prep. I'm not going to do it.
I need 6 weeks to prep the team. And he goes, well, we don't have the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You think I'm the only one watching? There are other satellites here. They're going to be here before you know it.
They try to set her up as the moral person here.
I just realised that actually wasn't such a bad Lance Henriksen kind of impersonation, was it? I'm kind of impressed there.
And of course, the introduction of...
Well, that's what I was going to say too. What do you think of the introduction of Alexa Woods when she's like mountain climbing and she gets like a phone call and she actually answers? It's like she's like on this really precarious situation, like on the side of a like a mountain, like in the middle of this really tough ascent to the top, and she gets a phone call, and you know it's from, I've seen this actor quite a lot, Colin Salmon, who plays the assistant to Mr. Wayland.
Well, he's here because he was in Resident Evil, which was also directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, of course. He, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen Resident Evil, but he's the one who gets taken out in the laser grid when it goes all checkerboard and slices through him. So, yeah, that's definitely why he's here. He's worked with Anderson before, and, yeah, he's called up Lex, our, I guess for lack of a better term, lead character here. And, yeah, they're all heading out to meet Charles Bishop Whalen, who has, for some reason, he owns satellites and stuff. I think we've said this throughout the trivia. It's a perfectly reasonable explanation. It's not an excellent one, but it is, at the end of the day, still perfectly reasonable. He has satellites. He runs a communications company. That's what the Whalen Corporation is. It's, I guess, technically not yet Weyland-Yutani.
I don't remember seeing the word Yutani in there. It just looked like it was just Whalen Corporation. So this is the genesis of the company.
He actually wants to go with them, even though he's obviously a sick old man. He wants this, I guess, maybe to be his last great adventure. He's the one fronting the money. Maybe it's some kind of hubris. I don't know. They
don't really go into too much detail about what's actually wrong with Wayland. I mean, you have that sequence where he's coughing and spluttering, and he's obviously got some kind of puffer, and you can only assume he's got lung cancer or something is kind of going on. And Sana Latham is almost insistent upon the fact that he can't come along, and he's just like, dude, I need this. Like I have to go. Like, and truthfully, like, it's my money. I'm coming whether you like it or not. So he's, next thing you know, they're on their way in this icebreaker to one of the most remote places that's possible.
7 days ago, one of my satellites over Antarctica hunting for mineral deposits discovered a sudden heat bloom beneath the Earth, which outlined this. The red lines indicate solid walls. Through thermal mapping, we've generated a rough three-dimensional image of the structure. It's massive, containing hundreds of rooms, all built around a central core. My experts tell me it's a pyramid. What they can't agree on is who built it and when. One expert tells me this has features reminiscent of the Aztecs. Another tells me it's probably Cambodian. What they all agree on is that the smooth side is definitively Egyptian.
I think your experts are right.
Which one?
All of them.
Meaning what exactly?
This pyramid contains the features of all three cultures. This might be the first pyramid ever built.
But built by whom?
By the first civilization.
Thank you.
But how could anyone possibly build a pyramid out here?
Ancient maps show Antarctica free of ice. It's likely the continent was once habitable.
Well, I can't tell you who built it, but if I can take a sample from it, then I can tell you how old it is.
Well, Dr. Miller, I'm offering to put you right next to this thing.
What caused the heat bloom?
I don't know.
Where exactly on the ice is this?
Bovatoya Island. But it's not on the ice. It's 2,000 feet below it.
Mr. Quinn?
Mr. Stafford, you're looking at the best drilling team in the world.
We'll shoot you that depth in 7 days.
And add 3 weeks on top of that to train everyone here.
We don't have that kind of time, Ms. Woods. I'm not the only one with a satellite over Antarctica. Others will be here soon.
You know, I did sort of like half revisit the extended version of this film, mostly just to watch the opening scene, because I think this actually kind of adds something to it. And in the opening scene, it actually has you at that abandoned whaling station back in 1904.
Interesting. See, I didn't see that. I just watched the theatrical cut.
And really, it's just like all the people who were there at the whaling station are being attacked by predators who are in camouflage mode. It's a quick, like, 2-3 minute scene, but it kind of sets up that station. In this version, we arrive at this station and they talk about how it was abandoned for some unexplained reason. The film doesn't actually explain the reason, other than to say that this occurrence, I guess, happens every 100 years. I think they kind of gloss over that a little bit, so you can kind of infer that all the people were killed the last time this pyramid got turned on and whatever. But I don't know, I kind of like that scene. It's a good addition in the extended version if you have the means to see it.
Yeah, I should try and check that out, because I like, you're right, they just show up at this whaling station, and it's all very mysterious as to why this structure is on top of this, you know, historic kind of landmark. And keep in mind too, you've got that scene earlier when Waylon is addressing the team and they're trying to make heads or tails of actually what it is, and it's like, well, you know, the one side of it clearly has like Egyptian kind of characteristics, and another one has like Amazonian, or I think he says like Incas or something like that.
Incas or Mayans or something.
And there's like Thai links there as well, and they all can't agree, so he puts this like crack team together to get out there as quickly as possible to get to it. Whilst they're actually trying to get to this destination with, you know, the team getting the shits about the preparation time and whatnot, a Predator ship actually reaches Earth's orbit, and it actually fires a beam that creates a passage through the ice. When the team actually arrive at the abandoned whaling station above the heat source, they find that there's actually already a passage being created, and they can descend beneath the ice. And this obviously perplexes everyone involved, including the crack drill team that Waylon has put together, who, didn't they say that in order to kind of drill to that level, they needed like a week or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Again, this is like throwing a spanner in the works. They're going down, you know, ill-prepared, but now they're going down even a week earlier than they expected. I mean, you could look at it and think, well, Lex thought, well, I at least have a week to train these people while the drill team are doing their thing. But now they've shown up, and hey, we're going down like right now.
And doesn't she have 3 rules? She's got 3 rules that everyone has to live by, doesn't she? What is it? Something about like everyone stay together, you know, no one acting like a hero or something like that. And something else, I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but she lays down the law to this group of people who probably should be trained.
They seem to have some sort of mercenary team with them, and for some reason they've got this guy who I guess does carbon dating or something. He's kind of this inept British dude, and then they've got an archaeologist as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that guy who's the inept British guy, I'm pretty sure he's from like Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels or Snatch. I've seen that guy quite a lot. In fact, I'm looking him up on IMDb at the moment, and he was in Trainspotting.
Yeah, Trainspotting. Mm-hmm.
Snatch in 2000. So he was a pretty well-known face.
Yeah, that's kind of where I know him from. I guess this was maybe, I don't know why they cast this guy. It's just a weird character to have there. And of course, having the drill team there, who now no longer have anything to do with the story, they're easy pickings for the predators when they show up.
Big time. And so the team locate the mysterious pyramid and begin to explore it, finding evidence of a prehistoric civilization and what appears to be a sacrificial chamber filled with human skeletons with ruptured rib cages. So they're trying to put 2 and 2 together and try and work it all out. And basically, as soon as they get into the pyramid, it all goes a little pear-shaped from here on in, doesn't it?
Yeah, as they walk in, they have unwittingly activated the structure, and this brings an alien queen up out of some sort of cryostasis, and she almost immediately starts laying eggs, of course, and these eggs hatch with facehuggers, attach themselves to a bunch of the team. voila, we've got ourselves a whole bunch of aliens in the structure, and of course the predators are on their way in.
The cool kind of thing, which is actually a mechanic that I actually didn't mind so much in the film, was the concept of the pyramid shifting around, and I'm assuming it was shifting around to kind of create like a level kind of playing field between. I mean, you can only assume that this whole area was designed for the aliens and the predators to kind of match off together, and it was up to the predators to kind of kill the aliens, and or vice versa, whatever it might have been. So what actually happens is that the pyramid shifts with all of this team in this kind of area, and obviously they're not expecting it. It just happens kind of by itself, and part of the team gets trapped in the sacrificial chamber, and they soon kind of realize why it's called the sacrificial chamber, because all of those guys are in big trouble.
Any idea what these are? No. You? No.
It's a good thing we brought the experts.
Well, yeah, it is a good thing. Because this is like finding Moses' DVD collection.
Wayland?
A little too much excitement.
Okay, we've been out long enough for today. We're gonna set up base camp tonight at the whaling station and get back at it first thing tomorrow morning.
Well, you can go back to the base camp, Miss Woods, but we're staying here.
No. You wanted to leave without proper prep. We did. You wanted to be the first ones here. We are. You've claimed the find. It's yours. Now we move as a team, and we're done for the day.
You heard her.
What do you want to do with these, Mr. Wayne?
Take them. We'll run further tests on the surface.
No! No! Don't touch them!
You know, we may as well just skip to, what this is all about. And it turns out that this is some sort of rite of passage for the predators. And like I said in the trivia, they refer to them pretty much as teenagers, predators on the verge of manhood. And they get sent down here, and back in the day, people would volunteer to be hosts so that the ultimate prey could be born and the predators can fight them. If you manage to pass this test, then you are, I guess, worthy within the predator's civilization, and that's when you can start going on to do what predators do. They hunt people and whatnot. They can, I don't know, they can write their own missions or whatever, do whatever they want, go and hunt wherever they want. But that's kind of the whole crux of it. And they get into this whole long protracted explanation of it where we have flashbacks and whatnot. People who would worship the predators like gods.
I kind of found that all those flashbacks a bit strange, truthfully. It didn't quite work for me, and I don't know if I really needed it.
Again, it's just like, it's an explanation for explanation's sake. We need to have this make sense somehow.
Do we though? Or is just simply the fact that it's just aliens versus predators enough? Do we really need there to be like a backstory that is like solid? Like isn't just the whole reason we're here to watch this film is to sort of watch aliens and predators fight? I don't really need to know why so much. I mean, I can choose who I want to side with, and and you probably have to say too that the film automatically sides with the predators. Yeah, I mean, there is this again, and we're probably jumping around a little bit, but to be truthful, as soon as the team get into this pyramid, it's just action sequence after action sequence, isn't it? Like it's a little hard to explain exactly like what's kind of going on. I mean, to cut a long story short, the predators are trying to eliminate the aliens, and this team are essentially getting in the way. Is that a fair statement?
I think so. It's interesting that we have these human characters, right? And they say you kind of need the human characters to keep the narrative moving forward. They explain what's happening. They get in situations. They try to figure out which side they need to be on, which of course is going to end up being the predators. They're the ones who are most human-like, or humanoid, as they refer to them. You can't reason with an alien. So I think it would have been really, really interesting if you found yourself a director who could have made this film without the human characters. Can you imagine if it was just a film where you followed the predators and their ritual of hunting aliens? Someone who could deal with a character who doesn't talk.
Or imagine the scenario where perhaps they did have human characters that didn't speak English or couldn't kind of like imagine it was a set 1,000 years ago or something like you know what I mean? Like it would have been a little bit more interesting to set it way back in the past as opposed to kind of, I mean, the only reason to sit today is so they can kind of link the other films with like the whole Wayland and Lance Henriksen and all that kind of stuff. It would have been interesting if they kind of went down a different kind of path.
Yeah, and as it stands, they spend at least half, probably a bit more than half of this film with all the setup and getting it all in place, all the pieces are set, and then it gets infinitely more interesting once you get the predators fighting the aliens. They pull out all their toys and whatnot, and the whole thing is set off with the discovery of the weapons, right? So, and they take the weapons out, and that's what releases the alien queen, and you're like, that's fascinating. That was the thing, is they had to go into this pyramid maze, but they had to find their guns that they put up on their shoulders.
They only realised that later on in the film too, about the whole guns thing, where they actually realised that maybe we shouldn't have taken those. Like perhaps we need to give them back in order to kind of restore order, because that's how this thing does get restored. Yeah,
exactly. And we get a face-off because we got 3 predators, and then we got all these aliens running around, and you get several face-offs between them. And in at least 2 situations, the aliens prevail and kill the other predators. And it's fascinating to see how easily some of the predators fight, and they don't go down without a fight. But then you see how amazing the aliens are when they win and take out some predators, because on both sides we've seen how formidable these opponents are. So them going at each other, and we kind of get that here and there. It just that's when the film really gets exciting for me. And then when it's down to that one last remaining predator, and our main human character has to team with that predator, you get that sense that he understands where she's coming from. I mean, that's infinitely more fascinating.
I'm so glad you said the whole Alien vs Predator fascinating thing, because I couldn't agree with you more. I thought this film really works best when it's just the Alien vs Predators kind of funny. I thought it looked great. I think both sets of creatures was really nicely designed. The Predators had a real menace about them, a very commanding presence about them. The toys that they kind of used, the skills that they kind of shown, the hunting skills that they shown was great. And the way that they were combating this crazy race of creatures, the alien creatures, was really interesting and way to do it. And this film works its best when those 2 things are fighting and arguing with each other and trying to kind of outdo each other, and who's better at the stealth hunt attacks, which one does it. And you're dead right, sometimes the aliens win, sometimes the predator wins, and we get to that point where you do have the one predator and he does side with the main actor Alexa Woods, or Sana Latham's character, and then we gravitate towards the end of the film a little bit. And don't get me wrong, like I know we haven't really talked too much about like the human characters, but truthfully, Corey, they're the least interesting part of this film.
We were talking in Predator 2 about how we got some new toys that the Predator had. They bring that back here, and like I said, they start with the Predators don't have their guns. They got to go and get those guns, but they've got that net weapon, they've got the spear, and then we get a new one which is like this
circular thing,
like a frisbee or a discus or something with spikes on it. Like, that's cool. We get to see the aliens like attacking with their tails and pulling everyone up, which we kind of saw in Aliens when it attacked Bishop. So yeah, it was great to get all that sort of, it's done its old thing. It sort of brought something new to it. The Predators themselves are a bit more stylized, a bit cleaner looking, if you will. But yeah, I think it brings a great sense of style to both Alien and Predator.
I really thought they did a really good job, and I was surprised. I wasn't quite expecting it either, like just how good the aliens looked and the Predators looked themselves. And what did you think of the sequence when our main character, Alexa Woods, kills an alien by herself with, I think it was the Predator's spear, if I remember rightly. As an act of heroism, the Predator actually beheads the alien and actually kind of gives it to the character, doesn't he?
Yeah, he even, I think, breaks off like one of the legs of a face hugger at one point and sort of gives her some sort of like hunter's mark across her cheek as well. And then he takes the head off, gives it to her, demonstrates that she can use that like a shield. The acid blood doesn't affect that, so you can use that like a shield, and rips the tail off, makes a spear for her, and says, yeah, you know, how about we team up? Even though they don't speak the same language and they're not even the same species from the same planet, they reach a common ground where they're going to help each other out. And you're just like, that's pretty good. You know, that's the best thing about having human characters here.
So we kind of are definitely gravitating towards the end of the film. So we've got Alexa and Sebastian, who's one of her offsides, decide that the Predators must be allowed to succeed in their hunt. So they actually make that conscious decision to side with the supposed, and I use the term loosely, good guys, the Predators, and that the aliens reaching the surface is totally unacceptable. Now, keep in mind too, earlier on in the film, the aliens do that same trick that they did in Alien 4, where they actually sacrifice themselves and use their acid blood to free the alien queen. So the alien queen is on the loose. But unfortunately, before they get to the exit point, Sebastian is actually captured by an alien, leaving only Alexa and the Predator to fight against the aliens. They actually use a self-destruct device to destroy the pyramid and the remaining aliens. Alexa and Scar, have they named the Predator? Is that what it's called? Scar?
Apparently. Well, I guess we did actually skip over when Henriksen gets taken out as well. Charles Bishop Whalen, he kind of goes down without a fight. Like, the Predator's hot on their tail, and he kind of sacrifices himself to see them. And I think the Predator kind of discounts him, like thinks he's old, he's probably having a heart attack right now.
He tries to leave him, doesn't he? He does that whole assessing thing and sees that he has a condition, and he goes, well, I think it kind of, and we spoke about this, I think, in Predator 2, where we realise that the Predators have like a code of some description. There's like a sporting kind of code. I think they only attack people that they feel are like worthy opponents. If you're not worthy, then they're not. I don't think they're really that interested.
Exactly. So he was like, there's no sport in killing this old guy who's probably going to die of a heart attack right now. But then Henriksen says, you know, out of a sense of pride, I guess, don't turn your back on me, tries to attack the Predator, who immediately, boom, kills him. So that was actually pretty good too. But yeah, you know, we do get all this stuff. Lex has to kill Sebastian, you know, sort of to harken back to that whole thing of like people who have been cocooned. Please kill me, just kill me.
Yes, that's right.
We're doing this again.
I know, again.
Every film they've done this. Come on.
That's exactly right.
Knock it off already.
So we've got our hero Alexa and Scar. They reach the surface where they actually battle the alien queen, and they actually defeat the alien queen by attaching its chain that it's kind of been secured with to actually a water tower and pushing her over a cliff, dragging the queen to the ocean floor. Scar, however, is actually impaled through the torso by the alien's queen's tail before it falls, and actually succumbs to its wounds and dies there as well. So we've got the end of our Predator named Scar. I never realised it was called that, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's interesting looking into it deeper that, yeah, I guess they have to give it a name. I mean, the character's not going to come on and go, hey, I'm Scar, how you doing?
So the pyramid's been destroyed. The alien queen has been, well, we can only assume she's dead. She's been on the ocean floor, but who knows exactly what happened to her. We've got a Predator ship actually uncloaks and several Predators appear. Now, I wanted to ask you a question too. What do you think of the Predator's appearance when he took off his mask? Because they like technology has moved forward. The 14 years it took to make another Predator film is the Predators look very different, don't they, than they did in the previous films, like in terms of a lot more polished.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can sort of probably attribute that to being like, this is their first official hunt. So they're you know, not quite battle worn or anything like that. So yeah, they're going to look a bit more streamlined, a bit more new. Probably all their equipment's probably brand new. So that makes sense. Once he took the mask off, honestly, I think it looked a bit plasticky, especially around the mouth.
I'm actually always just slightly disappointed when the Predator takes his mask off, because they're way cooler with a mask on. But you're right, it did look a little plasticky. I think they were trying to make it almost a little too humanoid. I remember in the very first film, he looked a lot more like alien, kind of like, and he still clearly looks like an alien, but they've definitely tried to polish him up by making him a little bit more recognizable, and I kind of wish they kept his face a little bit more rough around the edges, yeah?
Yeah, without a doubt. I thought it was interesting that we got more than one Predator in this one, a same beat that they played in Predator 2, when we had more Predators show up. They play the same scene here pretty much, where they kind of notice that she has been branded with some sort of warrior symbol or whatever, throw her a gun, and then they take off, leaving her there. And you're like, all right, that's exactly the ending of Predator 2.
The only difference being is the Predators retrieve their fallen comrade, and an elite Predator presents Alexa, as you say, with spear weapons in recognition of her skill as a warrior. As the Predators retreat into space, a chestburster with a hybrid form of an alien and a Predator erupts from Scar's chest. Now, I know this sounds terrible, but I did not for 1 second think that was a Predator. Yeah, it just looked like an alien.
Yeah, they kind of had like a shot of a facehugger launch itself at the Predator at one point, and this is the resolution of that. Now, in contradiction to what we knew in the previous ones, more notably Alien 3, which of course I didn't like, they did set up that aliens don't attack anybody who is host to their young. So the fact that the alien queen killed the Predator at the end there, particularly by piercing through his torso, which is where the alien baby would be, but whatever, it does set us up for the events of the next film. We will have this alien birthed from a predator.
With Alien vs. Predator Requiem setting up the scene for that. And let me just say right now that I don't remember seeing this film. Maybe, I think I've seen the first 20 minutes, maybe, but this is going to be a new experience for me, which I'm looking forward to. Bring on next week.
The story is all here. Thousands of years ago, these hunters found a backwater planet. They taught humans how to build and were worshipped as gods. Every 100 years, the gods would return. And when they did, they would expect a sacrifice. Humans were used to breed the ultimate prey. Hunters would battle these great serpents to prove themselves worthy to carry the mark. But if the hunters lost, they made sure nothing survived. Entire civilization wiped out overnight.
So, the humanoids, the hunters, they brought those creatures here to hunt?
And they use us like cattle. We're hosts for them to breed in. The heat bloom was designed to lure us down here. This whole thing was a trap. Without us, there could be no hunt.
Yeah, before we get into that, ratings recommend AVP Alien vs. Predator. What do you reckon?
It's okay. It's not great. It's okay. As I said to you earlier on, I think personally the best scenes of the film is when the alien and Predator are kind of going head to head. I found that really intriguing, and the on-screen presence of both kind of characters was strong. It felt very cinematic. The story element amongst the team was a little like, I didn't really care that much about them. I never really got to know them. Maybe a longer cut would have fixed that, possibly. Would have been nice to maybe spend a little bit more time with them. Even though I say that, it's actually 40 minutes are into the film before you see an alien or a predator. It's quite some time. So they actually do spend a fair amount of time trying to set up the scene of Wayland and, you know, getting to Antarctica and finding the pyramid. And as I said, you have all the appropriate kind of discussions about should we go or shouldn't we go, and we're not ready for this. And, you know, how do you expect me to do this? And then they quit, and then they get them back, and then they end up at the pyramid again. So a lot of it feels very formulaic, some very familiar storytelling tropes in there. I would recommend this. I'd say see it. I'm probably hovering around the 6 Alien Queens out of 10. It's kind of where I'm at.
Well, you know, I don't hate this movie. It does take a long time to get where it wants to be with predators fighting aliens. But like I said, once that comes, it is infinitely fascinating to watch. I love it. I love seeing the predator on screen again. I love seeing the aliens. I love seeing the predators fight the aliens. I think it looks fantastic. The people in it, the story behind getting all the people there, I'm a bit, about. But, you know, I think that's, you know, around like half the film, probably a bit less than half the film. So I can give this a recommend, and I'm probably around where you are. I might just go a little bit higher and say 6.5 pyramids.
There you go. That is Alien versus Predator. A recommend from both of us. Not a strong recommend, just a slight one there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you mentioned, next week we'll be getting into Aliens versus Predator Requiem, which came 3 years after this one. So we'll be talking about that one next week.
Definitely. So that's it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up listener interaction by joining our Facebook page at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcasts, or follow the show on Twitter at RewatchPod, and visit our webpage rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com.
And remember, you can always write us an email or record a voice message and send it to therewatchpodcast@gmail.com. And also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. Always very helpful. And you can help support the Rewatch Podcast by heading over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast, where you can make a monthly contribution as little as $1. And of course, we thank everybody who has already contributed over there. And of course, we're up on YouTube, so just search Rewatch Podcast and subscribe over there today.
That's right. Every episode's up there.
Absolutely. Every last one of them.
Yep, more to come too.
All right. Well, thank you again for joining me for this discussion of AVP.
Thank you very much. It was a good chat, I thought.
And I would just say, until next time, we've passed the PSR, but I wish I got a picture.
We're never getting out of this place.
The Rewatch Podcast is not associated with the copyright holders of these films, and no copyright infringement is intended. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes as provided in Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Copyright 2016, The Rewatch Podcast. Hi, Rewatch Podcast listeners. I'm Corey.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Nathan.
First off, let me say that we have all had a blast doing the Rewatch Podcast. Every week, we put out another episode for free for you. And although we enjoy these discussions with each other, we truly do this for you guys out there in podcast land.
That's right, Corey. But we are here today to tell you about Patreon. Every week, there are costs involved in podcasting about film and television, including hosting and bandwidth charges, our own personal internet usage, and film or show rentals and purchases. So, we're asking you to become a Patreon supporter.
If you can afford as little as $1 to throw our way per month, it would really help us keep the lights on. And if you want to send $100 our way every month, we wouldn't turn that down either. But it's your choice, and we appreciate the support you bring.
As always, we strive to bring you the best quality shows we can create, and we hope that you enjoy them. So head on over to patreon.com/rewatchpodcast to become one of our patrons and show your support for the Rewatch Podcast.
And if we get enough patrons, we may even be able to produce exclusive content just for the supporters in the form of simply getting episodes before the main feed release, or even bonus film discussion episodes as a thank you for your support. The website again is patreon.com/rewatchpodcast.
Thanks, everyone.